So to last longer is not the goal, but it's like a doorway. And if you listen to me or read my post, you know that I go on about that I help men lasting longer during sex. And I just wanted to, elaborate on this a bit today because most people, and I'm generalizing here, but most people statistically are mostly experiencing the type of sex that remains pretty much always and every time within the parameters of the man's the time it takes for a man before he ejaculates. And that's how long the lovemaking session lasts for a lot of people. Some guys can go again, most can't, some do, but it will end by the time he ejaculates most often. And this type of sex, it creates an energy that's goal oriented because you're heading for a goal. You're heading for the goal of the orgasm for the woman and the ejaculation for the man. And it also becomes transactional because it's like, well, you've had your orgasm, so now I'll have mine. And by the time the woman's orgasmed, usually it's very hard for the man to last longer anyway, because then he knows that now he's got the free card to ejaculate. Once she's had hers, he can have his. And this is the type of sex that most people are used to. And it can be very exciting, it can be very pleasurable, it can be very fun. And it's very much excitement based. There's movement, friction, positions, tricks, spots, and you're kind of manipulating your way to pleasure. And this type of sex, it's limited. It limits us because as long as you play within the parameters of the man's inevitable ejaculation, you won't pass the doorway. And there is a doorway that connects us to a very different way of experiencing our sexuality, a very different way of experiencing ourselves and our connection and our intimacy with ourselves and our partner. And it is very much linked to this doorway that's for most men has to do with his ejaculation. The ejaculation short circuits the experience for both him and his partner. So the reason I'm going on and on about this, it's not just to prolong sex, to have double long sex so you can have more orgasms and more pleasure. While that might sound all right, a lot of people say, well, that sounds like maybe it's too much. It would be exhausting. Why would I want to have sex for that long? Who has energy for that? Why do I need to make it last longer? And I understand that, but when you look from the other side of that doorway, it looks very different because it's a very different way of connecting sexually on the other side. When you take the man's ejaculation out of the picture, when the man is not bound by his ejaculation, when he learns to master his ejaculation, he can choose when to ejaculate and when not to. He might choose to not ejaculate very often, which really brings the two lovers into the dimension that is not goal oriented anymore. It opens up into like a timeless space when you're not rushing anywhere, you're not trying to make anything happen. It's a completely different playground. It opens up like a magical playground where we can begin to relax and tap into the moment and begin to flow and let our bodies connect in a way that we're not putting our own agenda anymore on the lovemaking. We're not trying to make something happen. So the whole performance idea of performance for the man, guys take such a big responsibility for making the woman come, and if she doesn't, then he feels like he hasn't done his job properly as the lover. But in this different way of connecting sexually when the man doesn't need to ejaculate anymore. He can choose to, but he can choose not to, because it opens up the moment, it opens up the potential to connect so much deeper and let the bodies guide. So when we're not trying to rush towards orgasm and create pleasure, then we start to become more embodied. We can fall deeper into our own bodies and start to experience pleasure in a very different way. We become more sensitively attuned to ourselves, our own body, and to our partner. So we can feel more. We don't need that much friction and action, but the subtler sensations become many times stronger. And orgasm is not a peak anymore, but a state that fills us and expands and brings us higher and higher and higher, in a way that our sexuality moves from this basic sexual, earthy, primal urge. It starts to rise and come higher and higher up in the way that it connects us to our heart and our connection with each other and our connection even to the wider cosmos and our spiritual experience of being alive. And it's a very, very different way, that as long as the man is always ejaculating every time he has sex, he doesn't go through the doorway, and neither can his partner, because it takes two to tango. So this is why I'm going on and on and on about lasting longer. Not because the lasting longer in itself is the goal, but it is a definite doorway. And in the moment a man learns to pass through this doorway, when he becomes in charge of his sexual energy, that he can ride the wave of his sexual arousal without the need to ejaculate habitually every time, it opens up a new world where sex doesn't become this race that's kind of ultimately exhausting and takes energy. Ejaculation takes energy for the man, and over the years it depletes him. So the young guys might not notice this, but as a man gets to his 50s and his 60s, most men start to really feel this decline in their sexual strength and stamina. They might not get erections as strong as they used to, and a man who pays attention will notice that after ejaculation his energy has a sharp decline and he might feel more sleepy. The pillow looks better than his girlfriend all of a sudden, and he might not feel as clear and focused in his mind and his thinking the day after. So so it's not the goal. The lasting longer is not the goal, but it's the doorway to a very different way of connecting to your sexuality, where sex becomes sustainable. The type of lovemaking I'm talking about does not have use by date. It does not need to end when we get older, but it can potentially continue until the very last day of our lives, because this type of sex regenerates us. It builds us up. It sustains us. It gives us energy to live and be vibrant and connect and be alive and be present. It doesn't exhaust us like it's almost, I see it like a hamster wheel. For many men it seems to be a hamster wheel when they're trapped into sexuality in the way that many men have a very strong sexual urge. It builds and it builds, and it becomes trapped inside his pelvis, like the lower part of the body becomes like a pressure cooker with sexual energy, and he can't think about anything else except for sex, and he just has to masturbate to release. And it's like a hamster wheel, because again the energy will build again and he will have to release. And this goes on and on and on and on. A lot of men struggle with this pattern where they have the constant build of energy that they don't know what to do about it except for releasing it through ejaculation. And it really can become such a trap because you will not know what lies beyond that, relatively small span of time in between you getting aroused and your ejaculation. So this is what I work with my clients to teach them, and it's not just about lasting longer, because that is again just a doorway. What lies beyond that is so much more. That is our fullest sexual potential, but it's even so much more than sex. It's our connection to spirit and to love and to each other and to the present moment. I love when I hear my clients tell me stories back, like a guy just the other day, about how much more he feels connected to his feelings and how much he can now share his feelings with his partner, who was complaining and unhappy about that she couldn't connect with him. But all of a sudden he feels more and he can share his feelings with her, which is deepening their connection and intimacy as a couple. So yeah, this is so much more than lasting longer. This is about entering a completely different playground where our sexuality connects us between the earth and the sky, and it's unlimited, and it's forever regenerates us and gives us more and more and more energy and potential to connect and experience and grow and evolve together. It's a dance of nature, that nature has its own beauty when we don't try and control it and force our agenda on it. It opens us up to a way of connecting with our sexuality where it's pure life force, and where life force is free to flow. Magic happens and miracles occur when we connect from this place. And yeah, I suppose that's mainly the point that I want to share today, that if you hear me go on about helping men last longer, then this is what I mean. This is what I refer to, and this is what I help my clients to pass through that doorway. It can seem very, very tricky to find, because the programming that what we have, that most men have within them, the urge of ejaculation, it's the biological imprint, that was needed as, we populated the planet Earth, as, our species. It was needed. And that pattern is still so strong for many men that they don't know how to come out of that. And there's so much misleading information also on this topic, which keeps the men, porn and the mainstream orgasm, peak orgasm focus keeps the men and their partners trapped in this very confined space that always, where lovemaking is always ending with ejaculation. And although that, can be great in itself, it is just a beginning. And that's what I want to share with you guys. And this is my mission with my clients, to do everything I can to help them pass through that doorway, because it's really a very different landscape and territory beyond. So if you have any questions, please get back to me. I love questions and comments. And if you want to get in touch with me to talk about where you're at in this respect, please send me a private message, and I look forward to hear from you.